So, first of all, of course, now thank you for calling, Mr. Michael Phillips. And, yeah, of course, how are you doing? That is, of course, always my first question.
Yeah, I'm doing well. Things are good.
And where are you calling from? Where are you calling from at the moment?
I'm calling from the Central California area of the United States.
Okay. And I said already in the beginning of the program that in Holland it's really cold. And how is the weather over there?
It's chilly, but it's probably not cold like it is where you're at.
Okay, yes, here it's still minus. And if you're going to...
it's right now it's 57 degrees. I have a thermometer in my truck.
Oh man, we have here a little bit minus 6, 7 or something at the moment. And if you're going even more east, Poland, Russia, minus 30, minus 40, it's really crazy. But
wow.
We like more the warmth, but we have to wait, I think, a few months to have a t-shirt on and going outside, you know, and yeah, Holland is always a little bit,
Right.
Okay. You are already more than 20 years in the music industry. Why, after so many years, a solo album?
You know, I would probably, that's kind of a complicated answer, but the main answer is that for primarily most of my music career, I've tried to do things in a band format. Mm-hmm. You know, so any time I had was dedicated towards promotion of a band situation.
Okay.
So, you know, and I'd been involved with a couple of different bands that were fairly well happening, you know, that things were going on pretty well with them.
Mm-hmm.
So I really focused all my energy into songwriting and promotion and shows and all that kind of stuff with the band setting.
Okay.
You know, so it wasn't until very recently that I wasn't doing anything with Face Down, and Deliverance was fairly slow, and I've always wanted to do something with real technical metal and a variety of different kind of sounds, or you know, not just limiting to one style. I always had it in my head that I'd love to do that because I love like Neil Morse, you know, Theater is like my favorite rock band. I love Steely Dan and Al Di Meola, so I just kind of wanted to do something where I have all these influences in me and express it.
Okay, and that you can hear also on the album, I think. Because also a question a little bit later on is, normally if you think about when a guitarist goes solo, you think about music like Joey Satriani, Mr. Malmsteen or Steve Vai, and you use somehow different elements. It's more freaky guitars, and you have also help from somebody who was a long time busy in hardcore and metal, of course, Mark Solomon. So you have different kind of elements in your music.
Yeah, for sure, exactly. No, and I appreciate those guitar players you mentioned. I mean, Yngwie is probably the single biggest influence on my playing is Yngwie. And you know, if he wouldn't have come out in 1982 in America, and I saw him with Steeler, I don't know that I'd play guitar the same way. You know, I mean, I think he influenced a whole slew of guitar. I think he's probably more instrumental in guitar influence than anybody in history, in my opinion.
Yes, that's true, what you're telling. And how do you maybe describe your music, let's say, on this album? I hear a little bit of Fate's Warning, even Metallica, maybe a little bit of even Testament. But what do you think about your music? Where you can put it?
I think all those bands you mentioned are definitely influences on me. As far as from my like thrash or metal kind of preference, or what I really liked when I got into that style, was in the late 80s, early 90s, I'm very close to San Francisco. And at that time, you had bands like Violence, Forbidden, Testament, Exodus. You know, they were playing like every weekend some kind of show up in the Bay Area. And in my opinion, for technical thrash, and as far as the feel of the music, there's never been a finer period of time or you know, bands that tapped into than that, you know. I think Forbidden and Violence in particular are very underrated bands.
Yes.
Thrash.
But yeah, that's true. And you mentioned this kind of bands, but how you can or how you came in contact with Bill Backman, who's playing normally different kind of music as a drummer, and he's playing, of course, with Neil Morse. How you got in contact with him?
You know, that's another interesting story. I have a friend of mine who's a music producer in Nashville, you know, Tennessee.
Yes.
And he does country music primarily. That's what he writes and records and produces. And I had been in contact with him. We've been longtime friends since childhood. We found each other. It's funny, him and I ran into each other in the 11th grade. That's how I met him. I was wearing a Rush shirt. And he saw it, and we were friends ever since. But anyhow, he went on to become he has a pretty successful production songwriter in Nashville. And he had gotten a hold of Bill Bachman through another friend of his and had told me about him. And, you know, that Neil Morse being like probably my single favorite artist right now alive, the opportunity to have a drummer like that play on anything I had was just like a dream come true. So I wish we would have had a little bit more time to maybe experiment with something different, you know, that he could have played on in more of a rock format or the progressive stuff. But I think what he did with the acoustic song that he played on is pretty cool. And just having his name, you know, and being able to have somebody that's associated with Neil Morse was just a tremendous honor.
Yes, it's really great. When I read it, it was... I directly checked it on the internet. Yeah, it was really great to have help from somebody like him. Can you tell us something about the album Mirrors Within Mirrors? It was released in 2009. How was it production-wise, and how it was received by the press and the fans?
Well, as far as the production of it, it was basically done entirely at my home studio, with the exception of vocal tracks done by Scott Waters in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and then Bill Bachman doing his drum tracks in Nashville. Everything else was done in my home studio in Central California. And I've been fortunate. I'm blessed to have a really successful business, and my wife and I have a really nice property. We live on 5 acres of land, and I built a shop, and I have a really nice studio where Face Down practices. In fact, it's funny because that same studio, the Crucified did their summer warm-up, you know, rehearsals at my studio. And I've had the guys from Vengeance Rising, you know, Once Dead rehearse there. And also Deliverance rehearse there. So I've had several different, you know, major Christian bands in that studio. So basically the entire production was done there, and I was in charge of pretty much everything. From the drums to the bass to everything, the tones.
And also the band Ultimatum was in your studio or not?
No, not Ultimatum, no. Actually, Scott Waters has been to my property. He was there for a CD release party, but no, as far as Ultimatum, no, they're located in Albuquerque, New Mexico, which is, you know, quite a ways from where I'm at.
All right. And the album, when it came out, how it was received? Did it went through all Europe or all of America via distribution and so on?
Well, right now the primary distribution is through internet sales. I mean, I would only know. I think Divine Metal Distro. I'm just on the phone here. Oh, I have a farmer looking at me here. I'm gonna move.